It's not in trend as much based on the current oppressor-oppressed rhetoric in India to even come to terms with the fact that Hindus can actually be targeted, but they are being subjected to targeted killings in Bangladesh, loot, arson, and essentially very disturbing targeting of minorities in Bangladesh. A lot that was done badly and managed badly by the Hasina government, but you can't go without saying that this is going to leave Bangladesh in a very, very dangerous and precarious position. Hello everyone. Today I want to talk about a story that's been in the news for a while. It is about the recent events in Bangladesh. Right? It has been extremely harrowing. The footage that's come out of there has been scary and has really, I think, made the world look and wonder what exactly is going to happen now that Sheikh Hasina has fled and stepped down. I want to get into this story a bit because I think there's been a lot of contrasting narratives. It's also exposed a lot of hypocrisy, I'd like to think, in India and abroad. But let's get a bit of the context, right? So essentially, this is a student movement. At least it started off as a student movement that was actually against reservations, right? Which again, I think is fairly ironic when looking at it from the Indian standpoint. But this is actually students protesting a reservation that was there for children of freedom fighters after the 1971 war, right? For liberation. So those who had parents that fought in that war, who were freedom fighters, they could avail of those reservations. And I believe the conflict was whether the grandkids too would be eligible. And this started off as a really big student protest against this cause specifically. But as a lot of movements, it kind of started to take on the larger slip into authoritarianism of Sheikh Hasina and all around bad governance that they believed was in play in the state. But essentially, this student movement, and this is the part of the story that I think in the early coverage of last week was not being covered by the Indian media and the Indian left specifically I'm referring to, was that this movement has been thoroughly co-opted by the Jamaat, which is the fundamentalist Islamic party, which is banned, by the way, in Bangladesh. But what started off as this student-led liberation movement in Bangladesh has basically been co-opted and hijacked by Islamist fundamentalists from parties like the Jamaat, which is actually banned and has ended up in them targeting minorities, not just Hindu minorities. I know it's not in trend as much based on the current oppressor-oppressed rhetoric in India to even come to terms with the fact that Hindus can actually be targeted, but they are being subjected to targeted killings in Bangladesh, loot, arson, and essentially very disturbing targeting of minorities in Bangladesh. And when this was being reported, right, the knee-jerk reaction of the Indian left was to say, look, this is actually all not true, it's misinformation, right? We had posts coming out saying, no, it's just maybe a few reports, and as has been done in many cases, in times of crisis like this, there'll be people that come out with fake news as well about attacks against Hindus, and that one incident, that one case of a fake article is used to paint the entire truth as fake. We've seen that too. And I think that was very disturbing, right? And this student movement actually got supercharged because a lot of it was Hasina's own fault. She had actually opened the door a lot more to the fundamentalist tendencies in her country, right? So I think a lot of the blame has to do with her too. She very derogatorily referred to a lot of the student protesters as Razakars. The Razakars were the collaborators with Pakistan in carrying out this brutal genocide against the minorities in Bangladesh, modern day Bangladesh. So a lot that was done badly and managed badly by the Hasina government. But you can't go without saying that this is going to leave Bangladesh in a very, very dangerous and precarious position. It's nice to see that an intellectual like Muhammad Yunus has come into power. I've been a long believer in a lot of the initiatives that he's done, whether it's through Grameen Bank or otherwise. And as you've seen, he's recently gone to the temple, right, in Dhaka to show that there was indeed violence against Hindus. Because literally you had people in India saying that, no, this is all a lie, it's all fake news. Whereas you had the local newspapers in Bangladesh saying, no, this is happening. Including Dr. Yunus, who said that, look, if you're going to attack minorities, I'm going to step down. Right? So we need to break past these pigeonholes that we've created in our mind. Right? This oppressor-oppressed rhetoric is not going to always apply. And what I found, again, equally interesting was the articles by my favorite, Al Jazeera. Right? Sure, they have done heroic reporting on what's happening in Gaza. But that does not change the fact that they are also subject to tremendous bias, right? There was an article going around on, is the violence the way it's being reported, Islamophobic. I talk about, again, missing the forest for the trees completely at a time when minority community is being targeted, and not just the Hindus, but Christians as well. Your article is saying that, hey, look, maybe the reporting, let's be worried about what the reporting can do. This is not the time for the what ifs. The same way in India, you should say, look, this is not a time to question the motives or the what ifs, right? Or say a but. This is equally the same time. But that article was shared around again by that same ecosystem to somehow reaffirm their worldview. But it shows a deep lacuna of independent thought and bias-free reporting. And I think people are going to have to widen the kind of sources that they use to build their opinions and ideas. In fact, I'd recommend following Deep Haldar. I know he's been reporting about Bangladesh for so long. He has a very incredible book about Hinduism in Bangladesh, or Hindus in Bangladesh, the state of Hinduism in Bangladesh. And it's really jarring and scary to see where that minority community has reached. It has plummeted in Bangladesh. It's scary. So, read more and take a informed opinion and learn that sometimes it's not always sensible to trust a movement just for the movement's sake. There will be people that co-opt. There will be people that try and hijack the movement, right? Take India's own protest, the famous one, I think, being the farm laws. You had very strong agenda-driven, rich farmers co-opt a protest, right? A protest against laws that are sensible. So be wary, read across a vast variety of sources. And I really hope and pray that Dr. Yunus, now as the head of the interim government in Bangladesh, takes the necessary steps to make sure that the minorities are safe in Bangladesh. And in India, that we realize that this actually makes a very dangerous foreign policy landscape for us in this region. Right? We don't have many more neighbors that are going to be friendly. And India is going to have to walk that line of foreign policy, of strategic autonomy, and of building relationships with trustworthy countries. So I just want to bring that up, and I really hope and pray that the situation in Bangladesh gets resolved soon.